Hi, I'm Butch McCain. So can you tell me, what is this Canyon View Vineyard all about?
It's where we all go to church. But how do you define this church? Well, if you use physical dimensions, this one seems pretty big. Bigger than a Sears store, but smaller than the entire mall. And it is located near the mall, right next to the interstate on 24.5 Road. You know, that covers the what and where.
But what is it really all about?
Can you define the awesomeness of a community of believers serving God? Can you define the feeling of serving others?
We are making soup and we're serving it in the homeless shelter tonight.
How simple is it to tell someone what happens here? Christians evaluate success upon what pleases the Lord. But what does this mean to the average guy on the street?
Let's take a look at how the world judges success. Out in the world, it's a simple case of numbers.
When an automaker reports their earnings, it typically relates to how many cars were sold and how much money was made. With that in mind, we thought tonight we'd examine some of the numbers we found at Canyon View Vineyard Church. We'll start with the babies. 4,930 families were welcomed in our nursery for weekend services. 551 and 2-year-olds were brought to the nursery during Wednesday night's door services. 483 Moppets kids were cared for during MOP's monthly meetings. JC Power Company, Children's Ministry, where a team of more than 100 are committed to impact the lives of children. 70 teachers, along with 20 young helpers and another 25 substitute teachers, not to mention the countless volunteers who helped with events. 80 adults committed to teach Vacation Bible School, where 300 kids were reached with the gospel. 80 volunteers staffed 2 kids camps that ministered to 130 children as well as 80 kids and adults who presented the annual Christmas program to the entire church during 2 packed services. Over 13,000 kids were ministered to, and 40 kids were baptized. Club 56 gave away more than 600 hot dogs, fed more than 100 kids at Lincoln Park. 169 kids worked at Camp Idrahaji. JC Power Company provided a carnival for kids at Lincoln Park. 51 small group leaders ministered to over 400 kids. And in the youth department, they grew to over 600 consistent students, with 480 coming on a weekly basis. Over 350 first-time visitors were personally contacted, and most returned and made this their church home. 220 students went through Alpha. 42 students became born-again believers. 14,000 free lunches were given out. The Door shook 10,000 hands, sang 312 worship songs, 200 lives changed, and 6 marriages started. Young adults fed 750 homeless, provided Christmas for 18 children, and fed 296 families for Thanksgiving. Women's Ministry. 200 women participated in the live simulcast of Extraordinary Women. Over 1,000 women were present at the 39 weekly meetings. Men's Ministry dished up 250 breakfast plates, served 300 hot dogs, hit 1,124 golf balls, 250 hours of fishing, gazed with nostalgia at 42 cars in the car show.
The Connection Bookstore and Coffee Stop, 72 volunteers, 864 volunteer hours, 4,529 books and sermon CDs sold, 12,480 cups of coffee served.
Canyon View Team Sports. 6 softball teams, 400 bases ran, and 4 trophies were awarded.
Facility maintenance. Built and equipped 8 new offices, moved offices to make room for new staff, run and terminated 8,000 feet of data and phone cable, as well as 300 feet of TV cable. All of this only possible because of the faithful help of Dean McGee, one of Vineyard's full-time volunteers.
Grounds maintenance. 19 vineyard gardeners, 40 geraniums planted, 100 strings of light bulbs installed, 600 shrubs pruned and maintained this summer, 6 large trees planted, and 31,000 washed out blossoms removed.
Communion. 22,875 cups and bread were served at 39 services. There were 60 communion servers, 17 set up and clean up helpers.
Weekend worship services. 172 services, 215 service hours, 100,000 guests welcomed, 1,035 songs, 130 practice hours, 88,000 bulletins distributed. Overheads were displayed for 172 services. Bulletin stuffers supplied more than 700 services with bulletins. 50,000 people stopped by the information booth. Wednesday night worship, 312 songs, 52 services, 150 hours of practice. Family life. 3,600 people attended family life classes.
Canyon View Prayer and Support Ministries. Soul care providers trained and active, 23. Calls Life Support Network has received, 450. People soul care peer counselors have met with and helped, 65 people. People helped who are struggling with same-sex attraction, 8. People helped with grief through Grief Support Ministries, 79. People helped through divorce care, 72. People helped in their struggle with addictions and compulsive behaviors, 166. People's needs prayed for through the prayer line, 2,236. People prayed for in the prayer room, 416.
Servant evangelism outpourings, 12,000 PBJs to the teens, 11,000 cookies to kids, 10,000 hot dogs, 9 football games, 8,000 showing God's love cards distributed, 700 chicken sandwiches, 6,000 ice cream bars, plus 6 outdoor movies, 5,000 cups of coffee, plus 5 Riverside readers, 4,000 cups of hot chocolate, 300 gifts to the homeless at Christmas, 2,000 trees planted, and 2,000 bags of popcorn, 1,200 watermelon slices distributed. Estimated 96,200 practical demonstrations of God's love by 438 volunteers.
Crown Financial Ministry, there are 70 faithful group leaders and 184 new students that graduated this year. 15 families were ministered to with budget counseling, and 30 new churches participate now in Crown in the Grand Valley. 25 business leaders were trained to do business by the book.
Alpha, 1,897 meals served to participants, kitchen help, and children. 28 kitchen volunteers plus 25 table leaders put in 1,908 person hours over 18 weeks of classes. Teen Alpha for the first time. 3,000 desserts served to over 300 teens. 30 adult volunteers spent 600 person hours over the 10 weeks of classes. Most important, 6 teens gave their lives to Christ. Health Fair. There were 44 people who helped with the screening. Doctors, nurses, and all sorts of medical professionals screened 62 people, identifying health concerns early. Mercy Ministries. 18 struggling families were blessed with a new car. 87 vehicles were diagnosed or either repaired or put into use at no cost. 914 Christmas gifts were given to Angel Tree children.
In the food bank, there were 223 local families in our community that were given food when their cupboards were bare. God's Garage, there were 12 repair shops in town that fixed one car every month. In Cher, Colorado, there were 331 orders were placed for food and packages. 28 volunteers worked faithfully every month, taking the orders and loading and unloading hundreds of cases of food.
Homeless Center Outreach provided meals for over 1,600 people.
The Visitation Outreach, 28 volunteers are ready when someone calls to request a visit in their home, hospital, or a senior living facility. Angel Tree, 606 volunteers brought and delivered 1,046 Christmas gifts to 286 children who have a parent who is incarcerated.
Vineyard Craftsman and Handyman. 51 volunteers serving more than one time equals 175 volunteers. 1,182 volunteer hours on 41 projects. Projects range from a recreation building at Camp Idrahaji, electrical work at the Alpha Omega Institute, an electrical upgrade at the Glade Park Community Center, drywall and electrical upgrades at the Freedom House Ministries. For the church, the volunteers built oak boxes in the lobby, an entire new shed for the garage and servant evangelism, and countless many other projects around the church. The Craftsman and Handyman have done many projects throughout the community for a wide range of age groups. From simple water heater repairs to furnace inspections, the Craftsman and Handyman were building bridges in our community.
Funerals and chapel events, 270 volunteer activities, 17 meals that served 900 people.
40 days of community celebration, 856 attendees, 1,200 hamburgers, 60 pounds of hot dogs, 80 pounds of propane, 3 barbecue grills, 10 barbecue cooks, 40 volunteers, 40 gallons of iced tea, and a great dunk tank. Leadership Summit, 451 attendees representing 38 churches, 111 volunteers, almost 2,000 bottles of water, and over 3,000 muffins, bananas, apples, oranges, pretzels, and cookies given out.
Marriage Ministry, 460 people participated in marriage ministry events. 150 participated in the marriage retreat. 120 came to the Valentine's dinner. 292 couples involved over the year. Small groups. Many hundreds of everyday people formed in small groups that brought connection and growth. Small groups met across the valley and in Parachute, Hotchkiss, Delta, Whitewater, and Mac. Over 2,100 people participated in group life in 2005. Over 150 homes were open to small groups. 1,650 people participated in 40 days of community. 60 new small group leaders were trained. 12 small group coaches were trained. 240 gifts were given by small groups to the homeless shelter on Christmas Eve. Church staff, 16 new staff added. Currently, 13% of the staff are volunteers. Canyon View Vineyard missions, $272,000 given to 50 local, national, and international missions. 10% of every dollar contributed to Canyon View is sent out to further the ministry of others.
You'll remember, the question we began with was, what is this Canyon View Vineyard all about? The sheer magnitude of all these numbers makes for a pretty remarkable story. But how did this take place? Only with a veritable army of fervent, willing volunteers. So if you think what you do doesn't matter, that anyone could do your job, remember the numbers. Volunteers are the church. You are doing the job, and you are making the difference. It happens every day at 736 24 and a half Road and throughout the entire city. Every day, people who love God perform the work of the ministry, making the gospel a reality at Canyon View. I'm Butch McCain, and I'm a volunteer.
As for me, my